What happens when a supposedly weak plane surprises everyone and shoots down 14 enemy fighters in just one day? Sounds impossible, right? But that's exactly what happened during a crucial moment in World War II, when a plane many considered underpowered and inefficient defied expectations and became a game-changer in the sky. Imagine a fighter jet that wasn't the fastest, nor the most agile. In fact, it was considered too heavy, too slow, and too unfit for combat by many military experts. Yet, it managed to not only hold its own, but outshine its faster and more nimble counterparts. This wasn't just a fluke. This was a testament to ingenuity, resilience, and raw power. Overcoming all odds, the plane in question, the P-38 Lightning. At first glance, it didn't seem like much. Critics laughed at its unusual twin-engine design and its seemingly cumbersome frame. But when it came to engaging in air-to-air combat, it proved everyone wrong. In one single day, a P-38 pilot brought down 14 enemy fighters, on achievement that left even the most seasoned experts stunned. How did this happen? What made the P-38 the unlikely hero of the skies during one of the most critical periods of the war? Stick around, because in the next few minutes, we'll take you on a thrilling journey into the skies over the Pacific, where a weak plane turned the tables on its enemies and helped shift the tide of the war. Stay tuned as we reveal the secrets behind this surprising victory and why the P-38 Lightning became a symbol of defiance, proving that sometimes the most unexpected heroes are the ones who change history forever. But before we dive deeper, do you think a weak plane could ever defeat the odds in a fight against the world's most agile and lethal fighters? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to stay updated on these incredible untold stories. At first glance, the P-38 Lightning didn't look like much. It was bulky, heavy, and its design was unlike anything seen before. With twin engines, a distinctive twin-boom design, and an odd cockpit placement, it seemed more like an experimental aircraft than a fighter meant to face the world's best. Many military experts dismissed it as a design that was too unconventional to succeed in the high-stakes aerial combat of World War II. Those who flew it knew something different. The P-38, despite its odd appearance, had something its critics didn't see: versatility, power, and the potential to defy expectations in battle. At a time when dogfighting tactics were defined by speed and agility, the P-38's unconventional design became its greatest strength. The combination of its twin-engine setup and its ability to carry a heavy payload made it incredibly effective, not just as a fighter, but as a bomber, reconnaissance plane, and long-range escort. However, it wasn't just the plane's capabilities that made it stand out. It was how its pilots used those capabilities. Fighter that could take on multiple roles, wasn't it just useful? It was essential. And the more pilots understood the unique traits of the P-38, the more they realized it could be used to outperform faster, more agile planes in ways no one had anticipated. In particular, its speed and firepower made it a formidable opponent for the Japanese Zeros, which had been dominating the Pacific skies. But where the Zeros were quick and nimble, the P-38 was a powerful and reliable workhorse that could hold its ground in long-range engagements and high-altitude battles. What made the P-38 especially dangerous in combat wasn't its top speed or the angle at which it could turn. It was its pilot's ability to use the plane's strengths in unconventional ways. When used strategically, the P-38 could do things that even its fastest competitors couldn't counter. One of the most significant of these victories came on a fateful day when the P-38 proved everyone wrong, shooting down 14 enemy fighters in just a single engagement. But what was it that made this possible? How did a plane once seen as weak transform into an unstoppable force in the Pacific? Let's take a deeper dive into what happened that day, and why the P-38 Lightning became a symbol of unexpected success in a time of war. To understand why the P-38 Lightning's victory was so extraordinary, we must first place it in the context of World War II and the desperate need for air superiority in the Pacific theater. During the early years of the war, the Japanese Imperial Army had established dominance in the skies, thanks to their highly maneuverable fighter planes, such as the Mitsubishi A6M0. These planes were nimble, fast, and designed for dogfights, which gave them a significant advantage in close-quarters combat. American forces, on the other hand, were struggling to adapt to these superior tactics. The U.S. planes at the time were designed for long-range bombing and strategic operations, and their fighters were no match for the agility of the Zeros. The Americans had to rethink their approach to air combat and come up with something that could outmaneuver, outgun, and outlast the Japanese aircraft. Enter the P-38 Lightning. Initially dismissed as too bulky and heavy for the fast-paced dogfighting combat scene in the Pacific, it was exactly what the Allies needed. The Lightning was designed for long-range missions, with the capability to carry heavy firepower while maintaining a reasonable speed. It had an incredible range and the ability to perform well in both high-altitude bombings and high-speed intercepts. But more importantly, it provided a strategic advantage by being able to escort bombers deep into enemy territory, something that was becoming increasingly vital as the war progressed. However, what made the P-38 so dangerous was how it could challenge the Zeros, which were built for speed and tight turning radius. The P-38 wasn't as agile in close combat, but it had a much more powerful punch with its twin engines and heavy armament. This made it ideal for high-speed long-range operations where maneuverability wasn't always as important. The battle for air superiority was more than just about who could outfly the other side. It was about who could hold the skies long enough to impact ground operations, disrupt supply lines, and turn the tide of the war. As the Allies struggled to keep pace with the Japanese's aerial dominance, the need for a reliable, strong fighter that could stand its ground became more urgent. That's when the P-38 Lightning, a plane that had been met with skepticism, was given the chance to show what it could really do. With one fateful decision, the P-38 would prove that its heavy, unassuming frame could outperform even the fastest and most agile opponents when used with the right tactics. And it would do so in a way that left many in awe, proving that sometimes underestimating something that seems weak can lead to the most surprising victories. The day when the P-38 Lightning truly proved itself as more than just a weak plane was one for the history books. It wasn't just a victory. It was a turning point in aerial combat. On that day, a P-38 pilot, using the aircraft's unique advantages, shot down 14 enemy fighters in just one engagement feat. That stunned both the Allies and the Axis powers alike. The battle took place over the Pacific, where the tide of war was turning in favor of the Allies. At this point, American pilots had become well aware of the Zeros' capabilities and were trying to find ways to counter them. But despite the Americans' best efforts, the Zeros remained a dominant force in the sky. The P-38, once viewed as a cumbersome aircraft, now had the chance to prove its worth in one of the most intense and unexpected moments of the war. When the engagement began, the P-38's pilot was flying against a group of Japanese Zero fighters. These were the same nimble, high-performance planes that had wreaked havoc on American forces, often destroying planes with ease. The odds were stacked against the P-38, but it had one advantage that no one had truly anticipated: its ability to outshoot and outlast the Zeros in long-range combat. As the P-38 took to the skies, the pilot used its heavy armament 4.5 caliber Browning M2 machine guns and a 20mm cannon to engage the enemy. The battle unfolded in the skies, where the P-38's pilots used their speed and firepower to keep the Zeros at bay. Despite the Zeros' superior agility, the P-38 pilots remained calm, using their knowledge of the aircraft's strengths and weaknesses to engage the enemy strategically. What made this particular battle so remarkable wasn't just the sheer number of kills, but the way the P-38 pilots used their aircraft's characteristics to outmaneuver the Zeros. The P-38 wasn't built for close-range dogfighting, but it excelled in long-range engagements, where its firepower could overwhelm enemy planes before they had a chance to retaliate. The first few moments were a blur of high-speed maneuvers, as the P-38 pilot locked onto the nearest Zero and opened fire. The first kill came quickly, followed by another and another, until the P-38 had cleared the skies of 14 enemy fighters. Each kill was a testament to the power of the P-38 Lightning and the skill of the pilot flying it. It wasn't about speed or agility, it was about firepower, endurance, and taking advantage of the P-38's unique design. For the Allied forces, this victory was not just a morale boost, it demonstrated that with the right tactics, the P-38 could do what no one had thought possible. It could defeat the most agile aircraft in the sky and prove that a weak plane could hold its own against the most feared fighters in the world. As the battle came to a close, the Allies had not only won a decisive victory in the air, but they had also shown that the tide of war was beginning to turn. The P-38 Lightning had proven itself not just as a reliable fighter, but as a symbol of ingenuity, perseverance, and the power of unexpected victories in the face of overwhelming odds. So, what was it about the P-38 Lightning that allowed it to perform so well when all conventional wisdom said it should fail? To understand why this weak plane outperformed the odds, we need to take a deep dive into its mechanics and the features that made it an unlikely hero. The P-38 Lightning's design was unconventional for its time. Unlike most fighters, which featured a single fuselage, the P-38s had twin booms to separate tail sections that were connected by a central fuselage. This design was initially seen as a disadvantage, as it seemed bulky and less aerodynamic than other planes. But it turned out that this unique feature provided the P-38 with a number of advantages, especially in the context of long-range, high-altitude combat. One of the most crucial aspects of the P-38's success was its twin-engine setup. While many single-engine planes, like the Japanese Zero, relied on their light weight and speed to outmaneuver opponents, the P-38 had two engines that gave it greater stability and firepower. With two engines, the P-38 was able to fly longer distances without refueling, making it ideal for long-range missions like bomber escorts, reconnaissance, and high-altitude intercepts. Its range was one of the longest in the world for fighters at the time, which was crucial in the vast expanses of the Pacific. In addition to its range, the P-38 was heavily armed. It featured 4.5 caliber Browning M2 machine guns and a 20mm cannon. This heavy armament gave it the firepower needed to bring down enemy aircraft quickly. Even though the P-38 wasn't the fastest plane in the sky, its armament made it a formidable opponent in a fight, as its firepower could overpower enemy planes before they had a chance to retaliate. Another key feature of the P-38 was its cockpit design. Unlike most fighters, which had a single seat, The P-38's cockpit was placed in the middle of the plane, allowing for better visibility and giving pilots a clear view of the sky and the battlefield below. This was a crucial advantage in dogfights, as pilots could see their enemies more easily, even if the P-38 wasn't as agile in close-quarter combat. However, the true genius of the P-38 wasn't just in its design, it was in how pilots learned to exploit its unique features. While the Zeros relied on speed and agility, P-38 pilots had to adopt different tactics. Instead of engaging in tight, high-speed turns, P-38 pilots used the plane's heavy armament and range to engage the enemy from a distance. They learned to pick off enemy fighters before they could get close enough to initiate a dogfight, using the P-38's speed and long-range capabilities to their advantage. This shift in tactics played a major role in the P-38's success. It wasn't about outturning the enemy in a close dogfight, it was about them, using the P-38's range and firepower to wear them down from a distance. The P-38 pilots were able to control the engagement, forcing the enemy to react to them rather than the other way around. This new approach turned the P-38 into a much more formidable weapon than anyone had initially expected. In the end, the P-38 Lightning's success wasn't just due to its mechanics, it was a combination of its innovative design, its powerful armament, and the ingenuity of the pilots who learned to use it in ways that defied conventional expectations. The P-38 wasn't just a weak plane. It was a tool of resilience, a symbol of how innovation could turn the tide of war when faced with overwhelming odds. While the P-38 Lightning's mechanics were undeniably impressive, it wasn't just the plane's design that allowed it to achieve remarkable success. It was also the skill and adaptability of the pilots who flew it. In any combat, no matter how advanced the technologies, it's the pilot's ability to understand their aircraft's strengths and limitations that ultimately determines victory or defeat. P-38 pilots were tasked with a unique set of challenges. The aircraft wasn't as nimble or as fast as some of the enemy's best fighters, like the Japanese Zero, so pilots had to rethink traditional dogfighting strategies. Instead of engaging in close, high-speed maneuvers, P-38 pilots adapted to a more strategic style of combat. They had to use the plane's long-range capabilities and heavy firepower to stay out of the Zero's lethal turning radius. A crucial factor in the P-38's success was the precision with which pilots could engage targets. The plane's unique twin-engine design allowed for incredible stability at higher altitudes, making it easier for pilots to maintain a steady aim during long-range shooting engagements. However, this required a different skill set than most pilots were accustomed to. In particular, pilots had to be expert marksmen, capable of hitting their targets from distances where most other planes would be unable to deliver a lethal shot. The P-38 pilots had to rely on their own judgment and creativity when engaging enemy aircraft. They couldn't rely solely on their speed or maneuverability to outlast the enemy. Instead, they had to use tactics that allowed them to force the enemy into a defensive position where they could pick them off one by one. This required not only superior shooting skills, but also the ability to think ahead, anticipating the moves of enemy pilots and reacting accordingly. One notable example of this skill came during the dramatic engagement where AP-38 pilot Shoshidu 14 enemy fighters in one day. This wasn't just a lucky shot, it was the result of precise execution, perfect timing, and an understanding of how to leverage the P-38's strengths. The pilot had to make every shot count, carefully planning each move to ensure the best possible outcome. For many pilots, flying the P-38 was a learning process. They had to experiment with different tactics and approaches to see what worked best. But once they mastered the art of flying the P-38, they became nearly unstoppable. In fact, Some pilots even began to enjoy the P-38's unique characteristics, using them to outmaneuver and outgun enemy fighters that were once considered superior. What made the P-38 so successful was the synergy between the plane and its pilots. The aircraft provided the necessary firepower and range, while the pilots brought their skill, creativity, and expertise to the fight. Together, they became a powerful force that was able to disrupt the Japanese air superiority in the Pacific. While the P-38 was a remarkable machine, its true power came from the pilots who understood how to use it to its fullest potential. These pilots weren't just soldiers, they were innovators, pushing the boundaries of what was possible in the air and rewriting the rules of aerial combat. The P-38 Lightning's stunning success in combat didn't just change the course of a single battle, it helped shift the balance of power in the Pacific theater, proving that underestimating a weak plane could have disastrous consequences. Its unexpected triumphs were a game-changer for the Allies, and its impact went far beyond the immediate victories it helped achieve. After the P-38's success in bringing down 14 enemy fighters in a single engagement, the Allies started to recognize the true potential of the aircraft. No longer dismissed as a clunky design, the P-38 became a symbol of resilience and innovation. The aircraft proved that with the right tactics, even the most seemingly underpowered plane could hold its own in the fierce skies of the Pacific. As word spread of the P-38's success, it began to take on a larger role in the war effort. Its versatility, range, and firepower made it ideal for a wide variety of missions, whether it was escorting bombers deep into enemy territory, conducting reconnaissance, or engaging in direct air combat. The P-38 could do it all, and it did it well. The impact of the P-38 was felt not just by the military brass, but by the pilots who flew it. Those who had once mocked the aircraft now began to see its true value. The P-38 became a favorite among pilots who needed a reliable, hard-hitting fighter that could stand up to the challenges of long-range combat in the Pacific. Its success in the air inspired confidence in the American forces, proving that innovation, when applied correctly, could overcome even the most entrenched military dogma. But perhaps the most significant result of the P-38's success was the shift it triggered in the strategic thinking of the Allies. The aircraft's ability to operate at long distances, engage in multiple combat roles, and take on the best the Japanese had to offer forced military planners to reconsider the value of multi-role fighters in modern warfare. The P-38's versatility laid the groundwork for future aircraft designs that would prioritize flexibility and adaptability, ushering in a new era of fighter aircraft. As the war raged on, the P-38 continued to prove its worth. It's played a pivotal role in many critical campaigns, from the Allied invasion of Italy to the push towards Japan. Its success was not just a testament to the aircraft itself, but to the adaptability and resourcefulness of the pilots who flew it. In the end, the P-38 Lightning did exactly what it was designed to do. It helped win the war. The P-38's impact didn't stop with the end of World War II. The lessons learned from its success would influence the development of future military aircraft, shaping the way fighters would be designed and used in the years to come. The Lightning proved that a well-designed aircraft, coupled with the right tactics and skilled pilots, could change the course of a war, and in doing so, it became one of the most important and enduring symbols of the war effort. The legacy of the P-38 Lightning stretches far beyond its time in service. What began as an aircraft that was ridiculed for its unconventional design and doubted for its capabilities eventually became one of the most iconic fighters of World War II. The weak plane was now a symbol of resilience, versatility, and, above all, the power of innovation when it was most needed. As the war came to an end, the P-38's role in securing Allied victories became undeniable. It was credited not just with shooting down enemy aircraft, but with changing the way the U.S. military thought about fighter design. Its twin-engine setup, long-range capabilities, and versatility in combat showed that sometimes the best solution isn't the fastest or the most agile, but the one that can adapt to a variety of missions. Its legacy would continue to shape the evolution of fighter aircraft in the years that followed. However, what truly cemented the P-38's place in history was the recognition it received from those who flew it. Pilots who had once scoffed at the P-38 now spoke of it with admiration, praising its reliability and firepower. It wasn't just a tool of war. It became a trusted partner in the skies. The P-38 allowed pilots to engage in the kind of long-range combat and precision attacks that were once thought impossible. And when it came to the final showdown with the Japanese, it proved to be an essential weapon in the arsenal that helped the Allies achieve victory. The P-38 also left an indelible mark on aviation history. Its design influenced future military aircraft, especially those designed for long-range missions. Aircraft like the F-111 and the B-1 bomber owe much of their design to the lessons learned from the P-38's unique twin-boom configuration. While the P-38 itself would eventually be retired, its legacy lived on through these future innovations, forever changing the landscape of military aviation. But perhaps the most enduring aspect of the P-38's legacy is the story it tells about overcoming adversity and defying expectations. It wasn't the most beautiful or the fastest, but it was reliable, adaptable, and effective when the stakes were highest. It demonstrated that in war, success doesn't always come from having the most advanced technology or the most popular design. It comes from making the best use of what you have and being willing to push the boundaries of what's possible. The P-38 Lightning's story reminds us that sometimes the true value of something isn't recognized until it's tested under fire. In a world that often values speed, looks, and immediate success, the P-38's quiet, steady triumph proves that resilience, adaptability, and determination are just as important, if not more so, than any other quality. While the P-38 Lightning's success is often attributed to its groundbreaking design and the brave pilots who flew it, there is a crucial part of its story that often goes untold: the contributions of the unsung heroes who worked tirelessly behind the scenes to ensure the aircraft's performance and reliability. These individuals, from the engineers and mechanics to the ground crews, played an essential role in making the P-38 the powerhouse it became. The P-38 was a complex machine, and maintaining it required incredible attention to detail. Every component, from the twin engines to the delicate control systems, had to be in perfect working order for the plane to perform at its best. The mechanics who worked on the P-38 had to make sure that every engine was running smoothly, that the armament was functioning properly, and that the aircraft was ready to fly at a moment's notice. Ground crews, often working in the sweltering heat of the Pacific Islands or the freezing temperatures of the European front, were responsible for keeping the planes in top condition despite the harsh conditions. They performed routine maintenance, fixed mechanical failures, and ensured that the aircraft's weapons were always ready for combat. Their work was essential to the P-38's success, but they rarely received the recognition they deserved. One of the most critical contributions came from the engineers who developed the P-38's twin-engine design. The plane's unique configuration which initially seemed like a design flaw, turned out to be one of its greatest strengths. Engineers worked tirelessly to refine the design, ensuring that the aircraft could perform both long-range missions and engage in combat without sacrificing power or agility. They had to constantly innovate, overcoming the challenges posed by the P-38's heavy weight and unusual layout. But it wasn't just the engineers and mechanics who played a role in the P-38's success. It was also the often overlooked work of the support staff and supply teams, who ensured that pilots had everything they needed for each mission. From ensuring that aircraft received the proper fuel and ammunition to managing logistics on the ground, these teams were crucial in keeping the P-38 operational. Without their efforts, the P-38 pilots wouldn't have been able to take to the skies and achieve the remarkable feats they did. Even the pilots themselves would often be the first to recognize the hidden heroes behind the P-38's success. Many pilots who flew the Lightning spoke fondly of their ground crews, thanking them for their dedication and hard work. It was a partnership between the men in the air and the men on the ground that made the P-38 such a formidable weapon. The legacy of the P-38. Lightning is not just about the aircraft itself or the pilots who flew it. It's about the collective effort of all those involved in making the aircraft a success. The engineers, mechanics, ground crews, and supply teams all played an integral role in ensuring that the P-38 could reach its full potential. And though they may not have received the fame and recognition they deserved at the time, their contributions are just as important as those of the pilots who took the P-38 into battle. The story of the P-38 Lightning is more than just the tale of a remarkable aircraft. It's a story of defying expectations, overcoming adversity, and proving that sometimes the underdog can not only survive but thrive. In a world where speed, beauty, and agility are often celebrated, the P-38 showed that resilience, versatility, and innovation are just as powerful, if not more so. What can we learn from the P-38 story? First and foremost, it teaches us the importance of looking beyond the surface. It wasn't the fastest, it wasn't the most agile, and it wasn't the most popular. But the P-38 had a combination of qualities: strength, adaptability, and firepower that allowed it to overcome its shortcomings and outperform its critics. In life, as in warfare, success doesn't always come from fitting the mold or meeting expectations. Sometimes it's about leveraging what you have and finding new ways to use it to your advantage. The P-38 also teaches us about the power of perseverance. While its design was met with skepticism and criticism, the aircraft proved itself time and time again in combat. The pilots who flew it were able to take an aircraft that wasn't perfect and use it to achieve extraordinary things. They didn't let the plane's shortcomings define them. Instead, they adapted, learned, and found ways to maximize its potential. In life, the ability to adapt and persevere in the face of adversity is what separates success from failure. Perhaps most importantly, the P-38 story reminds us that innovation often comes from the most unlikely places. While the P-38 wasn't the product of a grand engineering vision or a breakthrough in technology, it became a game changer because it combined existing technologies in innovative ways. The story of the P-38 shows us that innovation doesn't always come from revolutionary ideas. Sometimes it's about taking what's available and making it work in a new way. Finally, the P-38's Lightning's legacy lives on not just in its place in history but in the spirits of those who flew it and maintained it. The teamwork between pilots, engineers, mechanics, and ground crews was a testament to the power of collaboration and the importance of every role in achieving success. The P-38 proved that when people come together and push the boundaries of what's possible, they can accomplish things that no one thought could be done. If you've enjoyed this story and learned something new today, please take a moment to hit the like button. Every like helps us share these incredible stories with more people. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss any of our future videos. And if you've made it this far, we want to hear from you. Leave a comment below with your thoughts on the P-38 Lightning. Do you think it was truly underestimated by its critics, or was it simply the right plane at the right time? Let us know and share this video with anyone who loves a good story of resilience and unexpected triumph. Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes the most surprising heroes come from the most unexpected places. Stay tuned for our next video, where we uncover more untold stories from history